Welcome to another special episode in our series celebrating the 20th anniversary of 150 Slayton Avenue, also known as the IALR main building. My name is Daniel, and I'm host for this special series.
And this is Caleb. I'll be hanging in on the mic too.
Joining us are currently two of the longest tenured employees of IALR and the Conference Center since the doors opened in 2004. Sales and Marketing Manager Ellen Bass and Event Planner and Service Operations Coordinator Diana Parrish. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks, Daniel.
Ellen and Diana, please introduce yourselves and give us some background on your experience and career before joining the Institute.
My name is Ellen Bass, and I do sales and marketing here for the Institute Conference Center. I have worked in some aspect of sales my entire career. When I first started out, I worked for a hosiery manufacturer and sold socks, and then we had a screen printing division where we did nightshirts, t-shirts, and different types of apparel, so I was a sales rep for that as well. Then I went on my next career. I guess I was selling promotional products and still some apparel at that time prior to coming to the Institute in 2004.
I basically started my career in California. I worked for an aerospace company that did radar systems, and I was the executive assistant there and pretty much did a lot of event planning for the company, parties, meetings, overseas travel, pretty much took care of all the administrative items. Then when we moved to Virginia, I worked for the hospital when it was private, and I worked for the emergency department there and did all their administration and worked for the director of the emergency department. And when I heard rumor that it might be sold, I started looking and got a job here at the Institute back in 2004. And I started off in another building, the Ringgold Development Center, for probably about a month or two, and then we moved over here. Previously, I would say I mostly did administrative. Once I came here, I started actually helping with the switchboard. And we had a lot of different people in the conference center with different titles that were pretty much doing more internships. So once they left and went back to college, I took the position of the event planner and started the ball rolling from there.
Before the Institute was open, it was still being built, you were in another location, Diana.
Correct.
You mentioned that you were there for about a month or two before coming over here.
Correct.
What month was that?
We started over there, well, I know other people were there prior to that for about a year, but I came in March, the very beginning of March, and we didn't come over here till the end of March. We didn't officially open until June, but we did actually have an event at the end of March because somebody really wanted to have it, and we opened the doors and let them have an event before anybody else was over here.
And we'll get to that very shortly, but what were your thoughts of this building, seeing it as it was nearing completion?
I thought it looked fantastic. I grew up over here in Ringgold. I lived in Ringgold at the time, so I used to take my kids here before the building was built to help them with driver's training because there was a lot of dead-end streets here. So
I used to do
take
a lot of walking here.
Yeah.
We would walk because there was,
It was
we're
just
like, what
empty.
is going on over there? Who's building what? What is that?
So I thought it was fantastic when I saw the building being built and how modern it looked. I was like, oh, I would want to work there. So when I saw the advertisement for it, I applied and went through a rigorous interview process that was pretty scary, actually, with how many people I had to go talk to. But
there were big panel interviews.
Yes,
back in
they
the
did
beginning.
a lot.
You did a lot of panel interviews.
Yes,
when we first got hired.
But the building was amazing to me. I couldn't believe it was being built in Danville.
And I remember when I interviewed here, I thought, it was almost like you were afraid because people would say, you're going to work there, because it was so much unknown as to what this building was going to be. And a lot of people were like, oh, wow, you're going to be working over there. So, and I remember I was like really intimidated thinking, just looking at the building and seeing the building because the structure was just so different than anything that Danville had ever had. And, I think people had such, different expectations of what was going to be taking place here. I remember one thing back in the day, I don't know if Diana remembers that they actually thought we were cloning people over here at one time. I mean, we've had a
Yes.
little bit of everything. And I remember Tim Franklin was here at that time, and he's like, where did that come from? But people heard research, and then, somebody told somebody, and somebody told somebody, and next thing you know, we were cloning people over here.
So to clarify, you're saying
We don't.
we have never cloned
Yeah, we
people
have never
here.
cloned
Okay.
people. We've never done any kind of cloning. Not of animals.
Not
or
officially,
people.
no.
Not officially. Yeah, maybe behind the scenes.
I was going to say not successfully.
Yeah, not successfully.
Otherwise, we'd clone ourselves and help ourselves with our jobs.
Yes, exactly. We would clone ourselves because there are days we need more of each other.
On previous episodes with Larry Hassan, the architect, and then with Jeff Forlines, the former maintenance, they were talking about the design of the building, the placement of the building out here in this area where when you get past, the city limits at the time, there was really nothing quite out here, especially this design of a building. So obviously you were probably looking at the construction of the building before seeing a job ad for it and
Oh,
applying
definitely.
for it.
yeah.
Yes, definitely.
And you didn't know what it was because I didn't know people that knew what really was happening. So you
Yeah.
kept thinking, everybody was like, what is that going to be? What is that going to be? So you'd get there'd be a lot of talk about it, but people just didn't know what was really going to be moved in here at that time. So.
I know a lot of talk back before it was complete. A lot of people thought because it was so big that it was a hotel. People kept saying, "Oh, they're building a hotel. Oh, they're building a hotel." And I'm like, "Oh, that's a weird shaped hotel." But yeah,
So Diana, you came here into this building March 2004, and you mentioned that there was an event the same month.
yes.
Can you tell us more about that event as far as how far along was the building nearing completion for an event to be held here at that time?
We were a few months away from actually being from completion. We didn't have all of our carpet down, all our furniture. It was a little bit of a struggle to get somebody in, but luckily the group that we wanted to work with wanted the main boardroom, the executive boardroom 206. So we were very lucky that was completed with majority of what it needed. So we were able to hold it in boardroom 206 and scrambled a little bit with catering, but we got it done. And I think they were really happy. I mean, they kept coming back.
They were one of our biggest customers for a long
Yes.
time. They came monthly, did like monthly staff meetings here
Correct.
after that. So
Yeah.
it was nice. In the beginning, it was a lot of, people didn't, it was just the perception of it's going to be too expensive to go to the Institute. But, I remember when I came on board in November, Diane had been here since March. Some of my first responsibilities were, we did a tremendous amount of cold calling and networking.
Yes.
Leslie Dobbins was here at the time. We would get in the car, and there'd be times we'd go to Greensboro, and we would just go from business to business to business, leaving information about the Institute because, part of our mission at that time was to try to bring people from the outside area into Danville, stay in our hotels, because it's always been about economic transformation. So, I'd be with the conference center. Our goal was to bring people from the outside of the area into Danville to utilize the facility, so that it was, spending money and bringing tax revenue to the city of Danville. So, we did a tremendous amount of networking. We were members of all kinds of organizations that were statewide organizations.
I remember one time we even, just for locally, we went around to the grocery stores or any place that had a corkboard or a window. We were going around saying, "Would you put our flyer up? Would you put our flyer up?" Because we wanted people to understand they could come into the building, see what the building was all about. We did a lot of those tours too,
And there
so
was a
people
lot of
wouldn't be
open
afraid.
houses in the beginning. The conference center didn't really put those on, but the education outreach department, maybe institute-wide, there were a lot of open houses at night for people to bring their families. And then all the departments would be set up and have information about what they did and just to try to educate the public because, as I said, the building was really intimidating, I think, to a lot of people in the community because it was such a different building, so grand and looks, people are like, wow, what did they do over there? So, it was a lot in the early days. I think
Yeah.
we spent a lot of our time just trying to educate people to
Get
what
them in the
was
building.
happening, get them in the building,
A
let
lot
them
of people,
see that.
surprisingly, if you remember, didn't even realize they could come into the building.
Right.
They thought it was a private building. They could not walk in the doors. So a lot of people, for years, we would run into people and say, oh, I've seen it, but I've just never been into the building. They didn't realize they could actually book conferences or come into the space.
And, our catering has always been kind of our, it's been one of our biggest, obstacles, I guess, in the conference center because, we're not like a college or a university that feed X number of people a day. So to get a catering company that could come in and commit, you couldn't guarantee them, we're going to feed 500 people this week or 1,000 people this week, because one week we might feed 1,000 people, next week we might feed 50 people. So it's always been a struggle. So, the area that's now the Megabytes Café has been there all along. And, we kept trying to do creative things in that cafe to bring the public in, to have something for them to come in. So what was first thing we did, Diane? I think it was...
Well, we didn't have a caterer when we first started. We basically used local restaurants, and they had to sign a contract with us to be approved. And if you wanted an event here, they basically would pick from our catering list and work with that client. And then I would also be working with them to find out when they were coming and setting up. But that restaurant was responsible for their catered.
And it was really hard from the sales perspective because it wasn't consistency across the board. So you may come here one day and get this fabulous breakfast, and then the next company could come in and pick another caterer that may not do the fancy breakfast, and they're like, well, I was here last week and it was so much better. So, it was that's always been our, struggle, but, we've worked through that over the 20 years. We've done a lot of different things, and we talked about the cafe, trying to get something in there to bring people in. Well, the first thing that I think we did was
Vendors.
It was a local restaurant. He came in and opened, and I think he was open every day and did sandwiches and things like that. Well, it just wasn't enough business because we didn't have enough employees to support it. We took flyers out, and that was before Facebook and social media to get information out. We ran ads, but he stayed for probably a year or so, and he actually was one of our approved caterers that we used, so that was kind of how it was just an extension of what he was already doing in the building. And then after he left, we started doing Pizza Hut on Fridays. You could pre-order your pizza and pick it up in the cafe, and we encouraged people. And the employees, I would say, supported that pretty well. And we would have a few people from the outside, but they brought over the personal pan pizzas, and then luckily after that we were able to get a caterer that eventually has opened the cafe full time, and so the cafe is now open, Monday through Friday, 8 to 2 o'clock every day. So, and a lot of people still don't realize that that it's open to the public. They're like,
Yeah.
You run into people at least once a week. It goes, oh, I didn't know I could come over there and eat. So, we're still trying to educate people 20 years later as to what all we do here.
Yeah, we're jumping ahead a little bit, but we'll go ahead with that. With Megabytes opened in 2012 as an official standalone kind of cafe area and not just a catering vendor space.
Correct.
What was the idea or the need of having an on-site cafe? What got to that point where was there a demand from the staff that we had on campus at the time to have a cafe to support them, to feed them?
I would say no.
I would say no.
It was just the open space of just having it sit there and not utilizing it. We had, it basically was a cafe even before we got the permanent caterer. So we just wanted that space utilized. We didn't look at it as a moneymaker, and still isn't. It's more like we wanted to get the public in here. We wanted them to see the building. We wanted them to come on, have
it was really
networking.
more about, the space just being, not being utilized, and more about trying to have something to welcome the public, to make people feel more welcome to come into the building. That was really one of the
Yeah.
main driving forces. And of course, the employees, a lot of people, there was, we had a drink machine and a vending machine in the building, but that was about it. So it was just an added, option or
was a
added
bonus.
perk for the employees that they could get something, in the morning or coffee or whatever and not have to leave the building. But it really was more about utilizing the space and, having something that the public could, relate to and utilize here.
In my 12 years of being here, that the size of our staff has varied over those years.
Definitely.
Before
Our conference center staff, when I came
we
on
dwindled.
board, when I
But you
came
more
on
work.
board, we had about 15
Yes.
IALR employees in the conference center. We have 4 now.
Yes.
Now, that also included, and some of those duties are now part of our catering operation, like the setup of the events and the moving the tables and the chairs and all of that. At one time, we had a operations
team.
manager
Yeah.
for the conference center, and then, that person had 3 to 4 assistants and most of them were college kids that were just looking to work part-time that helped to come in and set up events and stuff. But, back in the beginning, there was a lot of us, and we look now and look what we
Several
did then.
marketing people and education, and we had it all split in different things, even by what type of event that they were going to try to sell. So
So we
was-
laugh now and talk about what we do now compared
It's
to what
split
we were
between us.
doing then. And I tell Diana, well, it's me and you, baby.
Yep.
It's kind of funny, because we look back, especially when you look back at pictures and you think, oh, wow, I wonder where he is, wonder where he is, wonder where they are, because it's just kind of comical how we have increased our business tremendously, but
lot.
our staff has shrunk.
Yeah, the Megabytes Café has been an excellent addition to our main building since it's opened in 2012, and I think it's a great opportunity to invite that public in.
definitely.
As you were saying earlier, that when this building was being built, it probably was not public knowledge that this is a public building.
public
that you
building,
can come in at
correct.
any time during operating hours.
Yes.
And especially with the cafe being added on later on, that was a great tool to come in and to get more information, to be able to see the building, to be able to say, oh, you can have events here,
Right.
you can eat here for breakfast or lunch.
And it would also encourage a lot of people, when they did come to the cafe, they would a lot of times ask for tours so that they can understand what we do here. So that helped a lot with tourism, getting people in. So I think the cafe was a great addition.
During the early years of operation, from 2004 going forward, what were some of the initial responsibilities for you two? I know you just mentioned that at one point you had 15 people in the conference center.
Correct.
But what were some of those early responsibilities and those early events like?
A lot of my responsibility was we would do a lot of cold calling. A lot of the associations that are in the state of Virginia, they move their events around the state. And so, Leslie and I would spend hours just calling these associations, sending them information about the Institute. We were members of the VSAE organization, which is Virginia Society of, Association Executors. And we went to their meetings monthly in Richmond just to network and let people know that the Institute, was here and what we had to offer. Because, those associations move around the state, and a lot of times whether they're committee meetings, their board meetings, or their annual meetings, they move them all around the state. Well, at that time, there was not really a facility in the southern part of the state that offered a lot of, conferencing services. So it was a struggle for us to be able to work with those events because we don't have a hotel on site. And that's always been somewhat of an issue, but we tried to work with, the local tour companies with bus services to be able to offer transportation back and forth. And, we've worked with our local hotels, but, in the beginning, I mean, basically, I just did sales, and, now we help cover the events. We're here when the events take place, but, in the very beginning, I was just basically focused on making phone calls, going out to visit people, making appointments, talking to people, and, really letting them know that the Institute was in Danville and what we had to offer, the services, the technology, because we've always touted that our technology was state-of-the-art and we could take care of all of that. And, we've never charged for our technology, and a lot of these other places will charge for a microphone, charge for a computer, charge for this, but that's been included in the package of what we, offer to people.
For me, I started off differently. Since I was helping a lot with the switchboard, I was basically covering where the administrative side was. I sat over there. I couldn't even get up to go to the bathroom unless I had somebody help cover the phone because we were not allowed to get up. After that, I started in the early years doing a lot of the administrative for the conference center, all the reporting. I did all the internal bookings for the events, and I did start doing the invoicing when one of the staff members that we did have initially, they released him. And so I took over some of the items that he was doing, like the invoicing and our sales sheets. It kind of grew over the years, and now I do all the administrative, I do all the reports, do all the invoicing. But part of my title is Operations Service Coordinator because I also oversee catering. So I have to make sure that when the room is being set and I give them diagrams that I draw out, that it's actually done that way. And then I have to oversee that all the catering is put out, work with the catering manager to make sure rooms are put back in order and reset for the next.
Well, very different from what we did in the beginning. We cover all of the events where I've said we've had an operations team, so Diana and I try to split it up because, we book events from 7 o'clock in the morning to midnight, or we try to cut them off by 11 o'clock. So that's a long day if you've got an event that starts at 7 or 8 o'clock. So I may work the first 8 hours and she'll work the second 8 hours. We try to divide it up because someone from the conference center has always been on site, if there's an event in-house, just to troubleshoot, make sure everything's going like it's supposed to, and all of that.
Now, the building officially opened in June of 2004.
Correct.
And Diana, you mentioned there was an event here in March that was held in room 206, our executive board room.
Yes.
If a lot of people have never seen that room, it is one of the most exquisite, very high-end rooms I have ever seen.
Yes.
In any building, especially after the 2020 renovation has just made it even better.
It's definitely better than it was.
Yeah, definitely.
We had issues before. I know they had a lot of high hopes back then, but just so you know, the room used to split in half. And they used to sell it as 206A and 206B. And the boardroom table in there has a mechanism where the table can drop down in the middle so you can close the wall. And then you'd have two rooms. But the problem was the wall was not soundproof, so you could hear other people. And then when you did close it off, if you were in the second half B, there was no screen. So it didn't really work out, I think, as they initially thought it would. So when they did do the renovations, the room is fantastic. Now you've got the nice, screen,
monitors
wall, and
all around
monitors,
where you can see things.
It's changed over the years, but I think it's for the better.
Yeah, definitely. Were there any spaces that were still being worked on after the opening of the building in June 2004?
There was a lot of the classroom spaces upstairs. They tried to, I think, mostly work on the conference center space because we were opening. But there were still things that were, behind the scenes getting done, carpeting and furniture being ordered and trying to get the staff in and figuring out who was going to sit where. I don't think it was until a couple of years later that they really tried to make it more like down the hall here was going to be the administrative area, because they were trying to put people in different areas based on their department. And then that wasn't really working out, so they kind of moved everybody towards the middle of the building down here on the first floor for more of an administrative area.
Yeah, it's been interesting through the 20 years to see the building change, because like what now is Telly and Pam's office used to be what did they call it?
Used to
The
be a
library.
computer lab.
It used to be a computer lab.
For
So,
math,
you know, that
for
was
teaching kids math.
and they called it the Math Emporium. And I mean, we were like, where did that name come from? But there was like a Math Emporium at Virginia Tech. And that was supposed to be somewhat like of a bookstore, Math Emporium for kids to come in and be able to, you know, learn from there. So it was, that changed. I mean, one of the room above the cafe used to be just a big open room, and now it's, you know, we use that in our conference center. A lot of the
And in
classrooms.
fact, before we used it as our conference center, it used to be an overflow for the cafe.
Yeah, it was an overflow for the cafe. So, you know, we have laughed and said some in the admin wing, they'll put up a wall, take down a wall, put up the
Yeah.
wall, take down the wall.
That was
you
one of
know.
my offices.
And one of Diana's offices, we are laughing because they
They
went
put it
in
up
and
for
took,
me to have an office
and
in a
then they
suite.
took it all down, and now we hear in the next couple of weeks they're putting it back
putting it
up.
back.
So, you know, we just laugh. You put up the wall, you take the wall down. So it's a lot of changing. I mean, the floor, the footprint, I guess, of the building itself has changed a lot. Our conference space, we found early on that we needed bigger breakout sessions. If conferences come, you know, they have the great hall for their general session, but then they may want 5 breakouts that will hold 50 people. Well, then that becomes a struggle. So we've actually had some of the smaller classrooms on the upper floor that they took walls out to make it to where it would accommodate the larger groups.
Yeah, and that's what Larry said on his episode, was that that the building was, it's been fairly easy to update over the years, and we especially have kept Stewart and facilities maintenance busy with moving people and moving walls.
Yeah,
and
it's been a
adding
lot of that
space.
through the years,
Yes.
and now it's like
As we grow, it's just they have to maneuver where to put people.
Yeah,
so
now that
that's
we've
that's
grown
the
so
wall
much,
opening, the wall closing, or
Yeah, it's hard to find open space, you know, open offices now because we have grown so much and there's so many people on board that they've utilized just about every inch of the building.
Yeah.
How many offices have each of you all had?
for me,
Let's see, I think I've been in 5
3,
different offices.
4, 5 for me as well.
5 different.
5.
And when she would move, I would move. I mean, we always moved together. You know, we started out on this over here on the admin side of the hall. We moved a couple of times over
Yeah.
there. Then we moved over to the wing that Linda's on now. We moved a couple of times over there. Then we moved to the corner, and then we moved next door. So we've done quite a bit of moving through the years.
That was one thing I talked to Jeff and Stuart about, was the number of times certain employees have moved. It's almost like, you know, a game of who has the most offices in this building, or had the
Then
most
we laugh,
offices.
are they moving us closer to the door or something? And the longer you've been here, you're closer to the door you get or something. But it's been quite interesting.
Now, what were the initial conference spaces? Was it just the Great Hall, the auditorium, and the executive boardroom, and the smaller boardroom?
Initially, it's everything that we have now, but we also had where Governor School is. So we had all of those classrooms. When Governor School came on board, we were still able to utilize those classrooms when they weren't in session. So we would like use them for night classes, or we use them on the weekends. But then after a few years, they didn't want us
Well, they
going
moved
into
all
their space.
School stuff was
They
there.
had all
and
their items in there.
It
So
kind of got difficult. I mean, they had
Yeah.
a couple of rooms, because we used to have a full-blown computer lab that had
Yeah.
like 35 computers in it that companies used quite a bit for trainings, and then that was also used for the Governor School, but most of the time, and if we needed it, we would just let Governor School know, and they would meet somewhere else for that day or so, but then it just kind of got to where, you know.
the
they
teachers
need-
just had too much on their walls and their rooms, and we just couldn't keep moving things. So we eventually, I think it was almost about 4 or 5 years ago, we finally just decided, okay, what we'll do is make it a wing. This half of the upstairs is going to be all the education. The other half is going to be some offices and conference center space. So that's how we kind of split it.
You certainly have gone through a lot of growing pains and learning
Definitely.
over these 20
Definitely.
years to find the dedicated spaces for all of our uses. Now, has Governor School always been here since day one, or did they come in later?
Oh, gosh. No,
I know when
they
I came in November, I think they came about 2 years, I
think it
believe.
was 2
They've
years
been here
later.
pretty much. The reason they ended up in our building is they were at DCC, and DCC was going to undergo some renovations. So they were supposed to come here temporarily while DCC was undergoing their renovations. Well, they got here and loved it, and they've been here ever since. They never went back to DCC.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was about 2006 when they came on and then never left.
Let's talk about some of the different events that have happened over the years as far as going from just having a 1-hour meeting to having a wedding here.
Well, I mean, we've had from conferences, we've had 2 or 3 day conferences, we've had a lot of social events, birthday parties, baby showers.
We've done baby showers, wedding showers. We've had
radio station dance
like old
events.
school parties. We did those for a while, and then it just got to where it was, that was not the mission of our institute, so we haven't done those as much.
It was a group, those groups pretty much always wanted to start, they would book it at, 8 or 9 o'clock, but people wouldn't start showing up till 11.
And they wanted
And it
to
was
stay
like,
here
nah,
till
that's
2 or
just not
3
what
in the
we are.
morning. And it just, with our resources, we just got to where that was not what we needed to be doing. But we've done a lot of class reunions. I mean, the high schools in this area have been very proud to bring their classes back, especially people that have moved away. They will call and say, well, there's nowhere else. We want people to show what Danville's really got happening. So we've done a lot of class reunions, and then they're always very proud to come back here, to showcase the facility and show what nice it is. And,
A lot of pastor appreciation. We do a lot of the pastor appreciation.
And we've done a lot of pharmaceutical events, and in doing those, they usually bring in like speakers. And it's been really interesting because some of these speakers have spoken all over the world at different events, and they'll come in and say that they're just wowed by the building, and will say, I have spoken at, Yale and Harvard and this one and that one, but this building is by far the most impressive facility I've ever been in. So, it always made you feel really good and be proud to, work somewhere.
And back in the day, we also had boxing matches.
Yeah, we had a boxing match here one night.
That actually put a ring up
in
the Great
the
Hall.
Great Hall, and that was an interesting one. And one of the most interesting things is we did a small family farm conference.
Yes.
And they had all of these breakouts. And I'll never forget, we were sitting in our offices and we hear a rooster crow. And we go into one of the breakout rooms, and they had goats and pigs.
It was actually room 115 that we have right now was basically a zoo.
We were using it for a breakout, and we go in there, and they have chickens and goats and rabbits, and we're like, what in the world? But they stayed the 3 days, and then we got through it. But it was just, when you're sitting in your office and hear a rooster crow, it was pretty interesting. And then everybody's coming out of their offices like, what is going on?
It was an unusual event because that was one of the events where we actually had to go buy little vase kind of things because they wanted milk on every table. And it had to be their fresh
milk. It was real fresh milk.
So we were like, well, we don't have something that we're going to put on every table for milk. So we had to go out and buy some items for putting the milk in.
So there's nothing in the contract about whether or not you can bring roosters and
well,
pigs
we
into
never
the building?
had that in the contract.
Not
before.
initially.
We didn't know that was something we needed, and that's what got to be so funny because we were like, because we talk about breakouts, and that was going to be the children's area. Well, we had no idea that they were bringing on McDonald's farm up in here.
Yes.
The contract has since been revised.
Oh, we've rewritten that contract. You mentioned that contract. We just added something to the contract this week because, you don't know what you don't know. And through the years, things have changed, and you just learn and realize that some things you don't leave unsaid.
You have to spell it out more.
But, I think we're most proud of the conferences that we've brought here. We've had some, now the research,
We had that big SATS conference, which I thought was really, really fun.
And it was done with NASA and
yes,
stuff.
it was done with NASA, and then we had to get the trolleys in, and we would bus people over to the airport. The whole airport had vendors there, and they had simulators and
so it was
pilots
part here
there.
and part at
really
the airport, and it was all done through some of the research. And and in the very beginning, you talk about what did we do, how do we network. A lot of the I guess the vision was that all of the research that would be taking place here, that they would be bringing conferences and meetings, and we would be originally thought we would be doing more with just all that type of,
From internal
meetings,
people
internal
bringing
type
others in.
things. But
Yeah.
and we've done, the research we've done that, the CEA conference, which has been a great conference, and that SATS conference that Diana mentioned. There were people from all over the world here. I mean, they flew into Raleigh. We were just there have been a few conferences that we've had people that have come in from all over the world for different events. So
We can't forget the one that we all remember the most, which was the Indian wedding.
we had an Indian wedding here. And that was probably,
We transformed our atrium for the ceremony.
Now, I wasn't here on site for that because it was during the weekend, but I did see photos of it, and I was.
You didn't even recognize the atrium.
You're right. You completely transform the look of the
Yes.
interior and as well as the
there
exterior.
was a
Yeah.
gazebo built in the atrium. There was 500 Shafari chairs set up in there. The
Yes.
groom rode in on a white horse.
Correct.
I mean, and it was because an Indian wedding, I'd never been involved with.
We
one.
had never experienced
we had
it. It
no
was
idea
unusual.
what we were getting into. But after 21 hours of being here straight, we all worked 21 hours that day because
Yes.
it started. We had to be here like at 8 o'clock that morning, and then they came for the
It was
ceremony.
a 3-hour ceremony.
Yeah, the
and
ceremony-
their ceremonies are different because they talk, get up, move.
They
had
eat
some
during the
kind of ice cream
ceremony. They
thing, a
pass out
punch.
ice cream.
So we had no idea it was anything like that. And then once they left, because they had to go visit different families, we had to take everything from the atrium and move it to the Great Hall for lunch. Then they had lunch, then they left again, and then we had to revamp that again for dinner.
For the reception that night, and they
So-
came in for a reception. And unfortunately, as soon as the reception was over with, like at 1 o'clock, I think, at that time, then we had to restack all those Shafari chairs, get all we had to clean up from it. Well, by the time we finished all that, it was like 5:30 in the morning, and we were all like,
We were walking on each other's backs.
I mean, we were like
Because we couldn't
zombies.
move.
But
We were so tired.
That was probably that's the longest we've ever put in. Probably one of the most exciting events that we worked with was I think it was when Obama was running to be reelected, and we had Joe Biden visit. He visited the Institute. And that was really, for me, that was really interesting because we had to work with Secret Service. I got the phone call sitting at the Danville Braves game that this guy, and they were very secretive about what they wanted to do. So I called Leslie, and Leslie said, "That's a political visit. I bet you." She knew it. She named it. She nailed it. And the next day he called, and they ended up booking the event. But it was the visit. Joe Biden was the campaign manager at that time. But they transformed the atrium as well because they came in and built a stage over our front desk. Because our front desk is not movable. We get asked that all the time. Can we move that out? No, it doesn't go anywhere.
It's permanent.
But they built a stage over the front desk, and that was where Joe Biden stood when he gave his speech. And we were on national TV. We were on world TV.
Yeah, I remember they were saying, we need people up there. So I ran upstairs and got all the governor's school kids, and all the governor's school kids were kind of hanging on the balcony listening to it. So,
But
yeah.
we had to get Secret Service clearance. So we
Yeah.
had to send in all this information on ourselves.
Yeah.
And I guess they checked our backgrounds to make sure we could pass. And we all had these neat little pins that showed that we were.
We
And
could
I
walk
think
around.
the only three, I think it was Diana, myself, and Leslie,
Yeah.
and Jeff Forlines, I think at the time, were the only ones that got clearance for Secret Service. And that just meant we could be anywhere in the building and they couldn't question us as why you're here or
Yeah.
whatever. So. But that was it was a hectic few days, but it was really fun because they actually set up a control center and one of the, down where shipping is, they actually cleared that office out, brought in all their computers and everything. And I never realized because they said if you had something like a 9/11 happen while he's in your building, you had to have access to the White House. So they set up everything direct to the White House. And I just... It was interesting
It was
to think
fascinating. It was fascinating
that
to
every
watch.
stop that they make, they have to be prepared for things like that. And I never thought about it until that happened.
Now, do you still have those pins?
I do. And we had got a picture taken with Joe Biden, and they mailed them to us, and we got a certificate from the White House that, and I don't know where all that is, but, we got all that stuff that said we participated and was part of it.
I think that event happened a month or two before I started here, but I do remember seeing photos of that, and it's a very impressive visual of seeing the atrium transformed like that with that many people. And I know a couple of years ago we had the ATDM Summit, and we had Governor Glenn Youngkin here, and it was a very similar stage setup with the front desk and crowd. And that's when you walk out and you have two levels of a packed crowd. That's certainly
Impressive.
It definitely, yes. As we talk about some of the events that have happened here for the last 20 years, we talked about how at the time there wasn't a facility in Southern Virginia that could hold some of these events. And that has to say a lot to the testament of the Institute to go from small meetings to having an Indian wedding, because there's probably not many venues that could achieve that same effect for an Indian wedding, or to have a visiting politician come here and to fill out our atrium. If anyone has never been to our building, we certainly invite you to come to our building just to see it and be able to walk inside and take a tour and eat at our cafe, Megabytes Café. It is open Monday through Friday. Our building is 8 to 5. But ladies, what do you think when people say how modern this building looks? We have people in here constantly for events, whether they are from Virginia or visiting states or across the nation, and they'll come in here and they'll say, "Oh, how long have y'all been here? Been open for 2 years or 4 years, 5 years, kind of thing?" And we're like, "No, we've been here for 20 years," and they can't believe
I think
it.
Ellen and I get that every time we bring somebody new in for a conference. They always are amazed when we say that the building is 20 years old. I think it's because we take care of our building. It aged well. We always are trying to modernize and do what we need to keep up with the times. And I think the building has done very well, and I still think of it as an icon for Danville.
And I think that, the structure of how the building was, designed has a lot to do with the wear and tear, because there's so much steel and so many things that's not going to wear and tear. I mean, we've changed carpet and we've changed,
Some furniture.
Furniture, but as far as the structure itself, I think, kudos to Larry. I think he did a great job with the design. We could have used a whole lot more storage space, but, the building itself, I think just the way the architecture is, it's just, it has worn great. I mean, we've talked about it. People come in, you're, like you said, Daniel, people are just amazed that it's been here 20 years, because they'll say, well, wow, this looks brand new. But, like Diana said, we've tried to be good stewards of our property. We've tried, I mean, our tables and our chairs that we use in our conference center are 20 years old.
Yes, they're still the
I mean,
original.
it's hard to believe that all those chairs and everything are still
Yeah, I think the only thing we've actually done is just recover some of the chairs, and a lot of that was not because they were worn. It was changing the color of them.
Yeah, changing the colors. But, I think the original color, I know there was a lot of burgundy in the beginning because of Virginia Tech, but, the colors, the carpet just was I mean, we've changed carpet, but it's like, it just doesn't wear I don't know, it's been great. It's just been really, it's been a great place to be for 20 years.
It would be interesting to know. I'll have a list of people from different countries who have been in this building right here. Now, with both y'all being associated with the conference center, you have obviously visited other conference centers. How does this conference center at 150 Slayton compare to other conference centers as far as space and what we offer, amenities and technology?
I would say, especially in the beginning, we did a lot of visiting other places just to get best practices. And I know one of the ones was the Friday Center that's in Chapel Hill, that's part of the college there in Chapel Hill. They do a lot of their college meetings. And,
we've gone to Abington.
We've gone to
Virginia
Abington,
Tech,
the Higher Ed Center in Abington
Hotel
and stuff.
Roanoke.
And so we've seen a lot, but I think, what we offer here, most of those places I think I had mentioned earlier, they charge for everything. I mean, if you want a podium on the stage, you get charged for that, So a lot of those places, charge for all of that. And, we have always, our technology, that's one thing that we have tried to, sell in the conference center is the fact of our technology, how much, that it's
a highlight. It's a highlight of a
and
conference.
we have IT people on staff to assist you. Most everywhere charges for that. So to me, I think that's an added, Diana and I were working with somebody out of Dallas, Texas, that's coming for a conference here in November, and she was looking at what we call our all-day meeting package that includes, breakfast, beverages, lunch, and snacks and things in the afternoon. And she was like, oh my gosh, I told my coworker, this is the greatest price. Can you believe you're going to get all of that for this price? So, she was just like thrilled. So a lot of people, I think we've tried over the years to keep our food prices.
We research it. We don't just throw a number out there, and we've done packages. We've tried to do even with hotel packaging, but that just didn't work for our area at the time.
Not having the hotel on site.
It was hard. But we've done different packaging. I think what sells us is that because the building is aging well. I think when people walk in, they are wowed by our building, and we take very good care of our furniture. We take very good care of our clients. We offer our basic IT with their room, so they don't have to pay extra for an extra mic or to have a Zoom meeting or anything like that. So I think they are wowed by everything they're getting for the price.
And I feel like, that Diane and I both offer a lot of personal service. I mean, we kind of go over and beyond, try to make people, make their life easy. I try to tell people it's turnkey. You call us, you book it, and we take care of everything else. And in a way, that's what we do. You tell us what you're trying to accomplish, and then we're going to put it together for you and send it. And so, and we have a lot of people will tell us that, y'all do a great job because I didn't have to worry about where this was going to come from, where that was going to come from. You took care of it. And it's the personal service. I mean, we try to give as much.
Agreed. Because I think some of the places that we have visited in the past, they pretty much would set up the room. If you wanted IT, they put it in the room, but you don't get an IT person that comes in and helps you put your PowerPoint on there or
you have to call a help desk to get you, to help you get it set up if you don't know how. So I feel like that, the personal service and, is something that we're
proud of, and that's something that we offer. We want our clients to be happy.
Now, we talked about earlier driving economic transformation, and I know one of the taglines over the years that I was associated with the conference center was service excellence. With our 5 divisions being advanced learning, applied research, manufacturing advancement, economic development, and of course the conference center, there are people that say that the conference center is the hub in the hub and spoke model of IALR, as far as, we can have events or conferences or meetings that support all of our divisions.
To tag on to what you're saying is, I think that the conference center, we've always have felt like we were kind of
the stewards of the
building. So we were the one division that people could relate to.
They would come to us pretty much whenever they had a question about anything. Well, if we needed to do this, who do we talk to? It almost seemed like we were like the one department that you could go to, and either we would help you or we would tell you who would help you.
Or we're if someone calls us, we're the connection in a way with the public. So, they can come in and eat here. We manage that. We manage if you want to hold an event here. So we were the one department that I felt like that, we've heard that, we were the ones that bring the people into the building. So that a lot of times has made us kind of that, that center of the Institute, because people could relate to what we did because we were the ones that could bring them into the building to where they could get a feel for it.
On another episode with Facilities Maintenance with Jeff and Stewart, they talked about over the years that they have the carpet's been replaced, the paint color has been changed in different rooms, the light fixtures have been converted to LED. Let's talk about the renovation that happened in some of the conference spaces in 2020. That was the Great Hall, the
Great Hall.
auditorium, and the executive boardroom.
Close to that time frame also was 212 and 219 being built into one room.
And that was just really to improve upon the technology that we already have, but just kind of modernize it more. Different light fixtures in there.
Yes, we definitely needed to change to LED because I know, just speaking with Jeff in the past, how much some of these light fixtures and light bulbs were costing us. So the LED was definitely something that we needed to have done. So when we were looking at everything, we tried to figure out the best way that we could upgrade our technology to keep with the times, because technology changes so much that it's hard to constantly be the advanced for technology. You know, it's just not going to happen because it just changes too fast. So we had all met with Leslie and kind of looked at all the rooms and said, okay, what rooms do we really need to work on for this? And I know the Great Hall was one of them because maybe a lot of people don't know this, but our walls that are in there are manually moved. They are not electronic.
So the tracks that those walls were on, you know, had 20
having
years
issues.
of wear and tear,
Yes.
so they were getting difficult to slide and move. So,
Yes.
you know, during that renovation, I always said if there was one positive thing that came out of COVID, it was that we had to renovate. And we were already scheduled to go down in June of 2020 when COVID hit and shut everything down in March of 2020. So we started the renovation as soon as everything pretty much shut down, because we were going to be shut down for,
We didn't know
we
how
didn't know
long it was
how
gonna-
long. At that time, they had said we'd only be shut down for 3 months for all that renovation, which ended up taking probably almost a year, but it
Yeah.
was done during COVID, and a lot of the stuff was slowed down because of COVID, like the walls were shipped to Texas to be redone.
They couldn't get supplies.
And they couldn't get the supplies. Their plant shut down 3 times because of COVID. So, you know, it was a positive for us with COVID because we weren't going to be able to do anything anyway because we were going to be shut down for the renovation. But, you know, we updid the walls, we did the, you know, the technology, all the screens, the screens.
Carpeting in there, sound panels that we really needed so that when the room was split, you didn't have to hear from another room that was next to you. So
You know,
that
they
really
put
helped.
in the big video wall in 206, the wall in the auditorium was enlarged instead of, you know, so
New speakers.
new speakers and new sound systems. So it was a lot, you know, and then new carpeting as well.
Yeah. I
And
think
most
it
of
was-
them.
it
And
was
then
a
I think
great upgrade.
we got some new chairs up in 206. But, you know, other than that, most of the furniture and stuff is still the original from 20 years ago.
Yeah, I've been here for 12 years, and I've seen a lot of changes myself. I remember in 2013 the atrium screen being replaced because it was a large. It was
They were
displayed.
plasma screens
They were
back
all
then.
it was displayed as one large screen, but they were individual
Like
screens.
9 individual plasma screens, I think
Yes.
is what they called them. So it's,
It was very hard to have one image up there because
Right.
of all the black borders, but now it's seamless, and that's been up there for 11 years now or more. With the recent updates to the conference center, and hopefully they will last another 16 years or more. What are your thoughts on the conference center looking forward?
well, I think going forward, you know, there's been a lot of talk through the whole 20 years of a hotel being on site. And I really think, you know, for this center to be able to house multi-day conferences to where people are coming in. I mean, I think we've all been to conferences, and most of the time they're held in hotels because if you want to get away from something, you go back to your room or whatever. So that's always been our biggest struggle. So I do feel like going forward, you know, there has been a lot of talk through the years, and I think there's even some talk now that there's a possibility that there may be a hotel adjacent to us or somewhere on our campus or close to our campus that would be utilized for the conference center. I mean, so I personally think going forward, that would be a huge improvement, you know, for this conference center, is to finally get a hotel. And, you know, with Caesars coming to town, that has really put I've been going to a lot of these trade shows and things, and, it used to people would say, where are you? And it was like they never heard of you, but now they're like, oh, you're in Danville. Oh, gosh, that's great. Give me that information. Caesars is coming. So, a lot of people, there's negative and positive with Caesars, but I feel for this conference center and for us, it's going to be a positive because people that moving meetings around the state are now looking at Danville to do things. We have a great working relationship with Caesars.
It's
I work
making
with
it more
them.
of a destination
Yeah,
place.
it's making it more of a destination place than just, coming here for a meeting and there's nothing, they don't have a hotel to stay in. So I do hope that I see that in the future.
I would concur with that we definitely need a hotel on site. And since we are building more buildings, I see in the next 20 years that we're probably going to build out even more, have more programs. I know manufacturing is a big thing for us right now, so I'm hoping that not only manufacturing, but maybe, in 20 years, there might be another type of program that we also add into our curriculum, that we'll have different buildings and we'll basically be our own cyber park.
20 years ago, this was the only thing out here at the time. The main building was the only thing out here on this hill. And since then, we have added 5, 6 other buildings.
And I would have never thought when I come to work here, we would be adding all these buildings.
No.
So, that just goes to show you the growth of what's taken place, and it's pretty amazing.
Well, and DCC has their own building at the bottom of Slayton Avenue. So Slayton Avenue has greatly evolved since the early years to what it is now, and what it will be the next 20 years.
Yes.
Well, that's all I have for you. Is there any parting thoughts that we didn't cover that you would like to add?
Call Ellen to book space.
Well, I can say, it's been a great 20 years. I'll be here Friday, I'll be here 20 years, and I never would have imagined in the 20 years how things would have changed and evolved, but it has been. Diane and I have been together for 20 years, and I couldn't ask for a better work partner, and I couldn't ask for a better workplace to work. It's we all have our ups and downs, but overall, I've enjoyed selling it. It's a good product to sell. It's a great place to come and meet. So call us for all your meetings.
Call us for your meetings. Holidays coming up.
Yeah, holidays are coming up. We do holiday luncheons and dinner as well, and breakfast.
Thank you.
Thank
all
you.
Right, thank y'all.
Megabytes IALR's on-site cafe features everyday favorites, convenient ordering options, and an eager staff ready to welcome and serve you. Our enticing menus offer something for everyone, from a fresh, well-stocked salad bar, wraps, sandwiches, and our rotating hot buffet offered on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Megabytes is open Monday through Friday from 9:15 a.m. until 1:30 p.m. To view menus and for more information, visit IALR.org/megabytes.